Our next guest tonight has been braving the streets of Chicago to see exactly how this invasion is affecting residents of the Windy City as well. Joining us now to discuss is Terry Newsom, the president of the Illinois chapter of Parents Involved in Education and the co-host of the Behind Enemy Lines podcast. Terry, thanks for being back tonight.
Thanks for having me back.
Great. So when you went out to interview people about how the border crisis is affecting their personal lives, what did you hear?
Well, it's very heartbreaking because many of the homeless folks in Chicago are being totally mistreated, being left behind during the deep freeze. They're not given shelter. They have, quote, warming buses that are dedicated only for illegals. So the one of the homeless camps is a block from the illegal immigrant center, and they have 6 buses. And it says, thanks to the CTA, warming buses. And these people were telling us how they tried during the deep freeze to enter these buses, and Chicago cops would not let them get on the buses. People are losing fingers, toes, and even dying in the streets.
That's just absolutely heartbreaking to hear. And as you were talking about them not being allowed in, I mean, these are American citizens. They're not even able to utilize the resources that are being apportioned to them. Instead, people who came here illegally are able to get that for themselves. And I know you've also mentioned, I believe there were evictions as well. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, there was one. I was interviewing a homeless man without legs in a wheelchair, and then this woman came up while I was talking to him and told me she just got evicted earlier that week, and they've been calling, I think it's 313, for help, and no, she's been sleeping in emergency rooms and stuff, and they're not getting the help that they're looking for. And what's upsetting is between the state of Illinois and Brandon Johnson, they spent $1 billion so far that we know about. They spent $1 billion. They just announced last week there's a Italian beef, Bono beef icon in the city of Chicago, and they signed a $50 million contract to provide Bono beef to these illegals. I swear to you, it's like a high-end Italian beef stand throughout the city, and they just got a contract awarded to them to distribute Bono beef to these different migrant camps.
And it really is so heartbreaking because one of the big reasons, one of the big driving factors as to why we see the homeless crisis in America reach these proportions that it has, especially in the last decade, is because of drugs, right? Because of the flow of illicit drugs, especially coming through the porous southern border, Mexican drug cartels and the rest, some of them getting chemical precursors all the way from China for fentanyl. It's made its way into America. It's flooded our streets, and that's a big driving factor as to why we see so many Americans living on the streets. It's a mix of drug abuse, but also of mental health issues. Oftentimes those two go hand in hand. If someone starts to get into illicit drugs and then they may have some underlying risk factors for mental health, well, the next thing you know, it's a perfect storm, and it leads to some pretty dark places. But, it just seems like a lot of these other nations are making a lot of money off the U.S. They sell us these illegal drugs, and then they give us the people that they don't want to care for either, hence why Mexico loves to keep that border wide open. If it was a brain drain from Mexico of all their lawyers and doctors coming across, they'd put a stop to the border. They would secure that thing so fast. But when you're talking to some of these people on the streets, what do they tell you that they need or what they would like to see happen?
Some of them ask for jobs. So some of them say, I'd like to have a job. Some of them say they see these people that are not from our country, and they are sympathetic, these homeless folks, but at the same time, they're having, new Nikes, new winter jackets. They're getting link cards for food. When I was at that one migrant camp, there was like a little box of bunch of biscuits on top of a garbage can. And the thing was like a mud swamp with the tents, distributed everywhere. Another point to make is, we're told that these people are innocent asylum seekers, right? That's what the government is telling us. So I was inside 2 centers. Both of them have metal detectors and wands for you to get into the center. So tell me, I've never been to a hotel or living quarters where you had to go through a metal detector or a wand, unless it's a prison or jail. Outside of that, these people have to, every time they go in and out, go through that. Obviously, they're bringing weapons in. So for the safety of those that are not committing crimes that are staying in these centers, they have to have metal detectors and wands. So those are not for innocent asylum seekers that are being housed by us with our tax dollars.